Alright, so I tried to edit this video down because it's about a 2 hour long video, and I tried to keep the same context in it, but there was a lot in the original video where I was rambling because I was still trying to figure out my own arguments. Obviously, I don't have any experience in doing debates or in any kind of medical field, but some of the things I put on this, I added a couple little notes that were just things that I thought of while watching this video again, but those weren't necessarily discussion points that I made during the conversation. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm like trying to re-edit it so then I don't, so that I change my arguments or anything like that. Obviously, he won the debate topic, which I sound probably even dumber on the original video because I couldn't answer the questions very well. There was a lot of confusion on my part and incompetence, but some of the parts that were confusing for me were the terms that we are using. And then looking back at it, there were just kind of a switch of questions sometimes where sometimes you'd ask, what do I believe to be true? Then other times you'd ask, what is true? And then what will I behave as? Or what type of evidence would convince me the most? And you got to remember, too, that this is a theoretical conversation and hypothetical scenario. So the people who are going to fall out of their seats and be like, oh, my God, he said he's going to eat poop. He ate poop in real life. It's just, I mean, it's the internet, so whatever. I actually believe the true point that he was trying to get at was that the process of thinking can lead to absurdities. Although I don't know if he's saying can or will, because those are very different things. But all right, so without further ado, here we go with the layman, myself versus vegan's finest internet debaters. I never actually heard of this doctor before as a vegan myself, but his name is Dr. Avi or Avi, and he was on Ask Yourself's Discord. So enjoy.
Ready? So I don't do the vegan diet anymore because I didn't find it to be healthy for myself or my family because the diet is deficient
In
in nutrients that are essential
such as?
as B12.
Were you supplementing?
Oh yes. So I have 3 blood tests. I can find 2 right now.
So if you are not regularly supplementing with cyanocobalamin, you are doing the diet wrong. With the exception of possibly of people who are regularly supplementing with methylcobalamin, but I prefer cyano. So on my view, yes. If there was one definitive way to do the vegan diet wrong, that would be the way.
You're saying that it is a requirement to take the B12 supplement?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and why is that?
Because you can't get it naturally from a vegan diet.
So we agree that you cannot get B12 on a vegan diet without supplements.
Correct. I agree with that. What's the reason? Why is it unreasonable to get your B12 from a supplement rather than your food?
I just added this in. I didn't say this at the time, but when you read the back of your supplement bottle, or you can look on the instructions online, this is from the Mayo Clinic, and they just talk about these words, and I thought this set of words was interesting. Supplements versus whole foods. Supplements aren't intended to be substitutes for foods. Anyways, that's it.
I think there's a difference between supplementing and substituting, and I'm not going to substitute actual food for pills. Okay, so your definition of a diet. I understand you're defining the vegan diet and you're defining whatever diet, but the term diet itself, what does that include to you? Because that might be where we have a disconnect. Because when you say the vegan diet, and I say, let's just say an omnivore diet, we may be speaking about 2 different definitions of the word diet.
Yeah, sure. So diet, what I take diet to mean is just the type of foods that a person consumes.
So do you believe that pills are foods?
No, that's why I specified that someone should also supplement, that they're vegan.
Okay, so when we talk about the vegan diet, by the definition of foods, we agree that the diet is deficient.
Sure, that's why I said we supplement.
Okay, and vitamin D, how do you feel about vitamin D?
You can supplement. Able to get enough sunlight, I believe there are some mushrooms that can have a vitamin D, or there may be some other sources.
Aren't you the doctor that suggested to eat an all rice diet. Was
What? No, an all rice diet.
I'm sorry, was that not you?
Definitely not me. An all rice diet. I don't think that's something I would ever advocate for.
I'm sorry, why wouldn't you support the all rice diet?
I see no reason why I would ever support an all rice diet. That sounds like an absurd idea.
Why is it absurd?
Why is it absurd? It's absurd because, well, if we just calculated the macronutrient breakdown and we plugged it in and we found out the breakdown, you probably may either be deficient in several amino acids that are essential. You'd be deficient in a number of things. You probably have an overdose of certain amount of things. I mean, we could go through it, but there's a numerous amount of problems. Now, the problems aren't analogous to, well, you could just supplement and you would make up for that. That goes far and beyond that, if that's the analogy you're trying to make. So that wouldn't work.
So are you agreeing that you would not consume the all rice diet because it is deficient in nutrients?
No. I'm saying I see no reason to do it, and there's no evidence that it would have any benefits.
Kepner diet is a diet of rice. They use white rice. The power of diet therapy. And he also showed me that there's no possibility of developing any nutritional deficiencies. And just what I said about his contemporaries trying to prove him wrong, just hit the link and you'll read the paper. Cured type 2 diabetes 100% of the time. All this published before 1953.
I said, so you wouldn't eat the all rice diet because you believe. Can you say that again specifically so I know?
Yeah, because I see no reason to do such a thing, and I also see no evidence that there would be benefits of an all rice diet. If I were to speculate, the rest is just speculation. But sure, yeah, it sounds insane. If there was legitimate data showing that, I may very well advocate for an all rice diet. Sure. But even I think there's evidence that may be more helpful than what you're eating. But sure, if there's evidence that there would be more helpful, then what's the argument for not just taking your B12 from a supplement rather than food?
Because I do not agree with substituting. Supplementing is great. If you need a supplement. I don't agree with putting myself in a position into having to take a supplement.
Okay, so just to be clear, so if you could choose between two diets, so diet one has the supplement, and so diet one has the supplement and results in better health outcomes, but you get a nutrient from a supplement instead of food. And diet two, you get the nutrient from the actual food instead of a supplement, but it has worse health outcomes. You would still go with the diet that has worse health outcomes because there's something intrinsically wrong with supplementing on your view instead of getting it from food. So even if you were to live a shorter life, even if you would have a higher risk of disease, you would go with that because there's just something wrong with getting a nutrient from a supplement. Is that a fair characterization of your view?
No, it wouldn't be. With going with the question you asked, there's some parts in there that you put that kind of fit the answer to go in your direction. Like, if this diet proved to be healthier, then would you, et cetera, et cetera. So it kind of goes with the assumption that the vegan diet would be healthier than eating like an omnivorous diet, for instance, right?
Yeah. Yeah, or a meat diet including meat, or to a regular degree that people are eating meat. I'm not sure what your diet looks like, but yeah. So if it can be shown, just so we're clear, if it can be shown that this diet that contains a supplement is healthier than the diet you're currently eating, but you would just, with the caveat that you would be getting one or two nutrients from a supplement rather than the food itself. Why would you go with the diet that would be healthier, or would you go with the diet that you get the nutrient from the food, that even if you would be less healthy?
So, I mean, the obvious answer would be that you're going to go with taking medicine if you get sick. But the thing is you're creating the situation for why you need to take the supplement, which is going to make you sick. And if you do not take that supplement, you are going to get sick. So
I'm not appreciating an answer to the question. So I'll repeat the question because I didn't appreciate an answer in all of that. So the question on the table is the following. If you have two diets, diet A and diet B, diet A, you will have worse health outcomes than diet B. Diet B will have better health outcomes than diet A. However, the caveat with diet B is that you will get 1 or 2 nutrients from a supplement as opposed to food. However, in spite of that, you will have better health outcomes. Which diet do you choose, diet A or diet B?
The diet that we're discussing is creating the symptom for why you need to take the supplement. If you do not take the supplement, you are going to get sick. The diet is one thing, the supplement is another thing.
So you would choose diet B and take the supplement then, right? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying you would choose diet B?
No. So I said
Are you saying you would choose diet A? Saying you would choose, look, so we have 2 diets. There's diet A and diet B, okay? So I'm just asking you which one you would choose.
Give me an
So
ultimatum to reflect reality.
if you had to pick between one of the 2 diets, so diet A leads to worse health outcomes than diet B. Diet B will lead to better health outcomes, even though it is the case that you're creating whatever symptom that causes you to need some supplement and you take the supplement. Regardless of that, it still leads to better health outcomes. Do you pick diet A or diet B? Which one?
So I would pick diet B. I would pick diet B.
Great.
However, I don't believe that that's a reflection of what the vegan diet is.
Would you like evidence?
The thing I don't, because
You don't want evidence?
I
That if I
let's just assume that you're saying that you have evidence and that you can show on paper that the vegan diet is the healthiest diet on earth. That's the easiest way to just go.
well, I didn't say that. I said it was healthier than the diet you're currently eating.
Oh, the diet.
Yeah.
Oh, can you describe?
Or a diet, an omnivore diet, a diet typical well, not typical, but a diet, a health conscious omnivore diet.
What is
is
it?
what I would say.
Diet?
Yeah, I understand it's a nebulous term. The degree of meat that in the Epic Oxford study that the amount of meat those in the Epic Oxford cohort were eating, and compared to the vegans and vegetarians in the Epic Oxford cohort when diet switchers are controlled for. Let's just set the goalpost then. What would change your mind?
The evidence that would have to work for me would be to have, after my 8 years of doing the diet, to not have seen my wife and kids and myself degrade, especially my wife.
What evidence would convince you that your diet compared to the vegan diet is analogous to diet A compared to the hypothetical diet B? What I like to do at this point, what I like to do before that, I used to do this. I used to just present papers and present evidence and assume that, people were acting in good faith and people were, like scientifically minded. So what I like to do now is I like to set the goalpost before I actually present any evidence. So I need to set the goalpost and have it on record of what the goalpost is before we actually do anything.
And I think that might be where we have the break in connection. But I would like to say one thing that I think might help set the goalpost. One would be, what is your definition of a diet? Like, what is a diet?
Yeah, I just take that as to be the summation of the things that you eat. It may not be a completely ironed out term, but I think everyone can tell the difference between a vegan diet, which doesn't include animal products, and a non-vegan diet, which does.
So does it matter to you if a diet has, I mean, if we're talking about food or pills or, etc., or is it just the consumption of everything no matter what?
And they're both in health conscious populations. And your diet, the people on your diet ended up doing better than the vegan diet, then that would be my goalpost. So then I would say, okay, maybe on the net that evidence that there would be better evidence to suggest that your diet is superior to the vegan diet. And
So I think the problem with my position is I haven't thought about it in the way that you're saying. Like, you're saying, like, what is it going to take for me to be convinced to go back to being vegan? Like I said, my personal experience, and
oh, so the only goalpost would be that it would be your personal experience. So yeah. So and would that be the case in the face of any amount of evidence? So like, yeah. So I'm just trying. Would that be the case in face of any amount of evidence?
Yeah. So if you told me, hey, look, you tell me that something's supposed to happen, and I don't have that happen, then I'm not gonna care about what you told me.
Yeah, well, you're in a case where you haven't actually done A or B, right? You haven't done B, B being with the added caveat of supplementing properly, which you haven't done, and you haven't done, and you have done A, but we are just agnostic about B. So
I believe methylcobalamin is the most absorbable form. I encourage people to choose cyanocobalamin, not methylcobalamin. One study that took vegans and who were B12 deficiency, and one of the people, it didn't even work at all.
500 micrograms, 1,000 micrograms under your tongue twice a week, 3 times a week should meet everybody's needs. Here he covers your B12 with 200 micrograms of B12 every day, so you don't have to take a separate B12.
And so if you do take methylcobalamin, I would recommend 1,000 micrograms a day.
You only need 2.4 micrograms a day.
So that's where they got the new 4 to 7 a day recommendation.
And if you take a 5,000 microgram dose, it will not hurt you.
If you have normal B12 metabolism and absorption, and so you should be able to take one of those 500s, chop it up in pieces and take a little piece once a week or something like that.
It can even be any dosage because the amount that we need is just a couple of micrograms per day. They all have more than that, and it's non-toxic.
For anyone thinking that this is specifically a vegan thing, you need to do your research. Is no toxic dose of B12 that easy?
There are no negative effects of it.
There's a population that's at risk. They are men over 60 who were ex-smokers. If you fit that profile, you must get your B12 level that you're taking to an average of less than 55 micrograms per day.
2,500 micrograms of cyanocobalamin is all you need.
And I discussed some of the reasons people might want to be concerned about getting their B12 blood level super high. Lung cancer risk in men who smoke and took a B12 supplement.
And I've updated my recommendations, so you can go to nutritionfact.org and find those. So for supplements, 2,000 micrograms cyanocobalamin once a week or 50 micrograms once a day. And those over 65 years of age should take 1,000 micrograms every day.
Supplement that's specifically made for human absorption.
And so what it says on the bottle doesn't necessarily mean what's actually in the pill and absorbed into your body.
Intrinsic factor can only absorb about 2 micrograms of B12, and that's not sufficient. You need to take 100 or 200 micrograms a day, so by diffusion we can get higher amounts in the bloodstream because we're only taking it at one time.
If you are not regularly supplementing with cyanocobalamin, you are doing the diet wrong.
Or if you're doing fortified foods 3 times a day, so like at each meal containing at least 190% of the daily value listed on the Nutrition Facts label based on the new labeling mandated January 1st.
It's high on the vegetables, cool, then you're getting it from it.
Eating foods that we dug up out of the ground, because that food would have bacteria on it, it would have B12. There would be B12 in the water.
It's made by tiny microbes that blanket the earth. We probably used to get all we needed drinking out of a mountain stream or well water, but we don't get a lot of B12 in our water anymore.
It's not because the diet is naturally lacking, so therefore it can't be the proper diet for us.
No amount of evidence on paper that's going to convince me that my, I guess I'm trying to make sure I use the right words, that my health outcomes that I've had, it's not going to override my own experience.
Okay, so just to be clear, just so we're on the same page, so there's no amount of evidence, okay, sure. So there's no amount of scientific evidence that would convince you that the vegan diet, when properly supplemented, is healthier than your current diet. Is there any amount of evidence, just so we're clear, is there any amount of scientific evidence that could possibly convince you, whether it be randomized control trials, whether it be Mendelian randomization studies, whether it be metabolic ward experiments, whether it be randomized crossover trials, whether it be randomized crossover trials of clones of you? Is there any amount of scientific evidence that would convince you that the vegan diet with supplementation, proper supplementation, is analogous to B, and your diet is analogous to A?
I have to give you the simple answer of no.
Oh, okay. So just to be clear, so just to be clear, even if there was even if there were numerous randomized crossover trials of clones of you, and all of the clones did far superior on diet B, on this vegan diet with proper supplementation, on randomized crossover trials.
Hello?
And they all did horribly in the long run on the diet you're currently eating, you would say that is insufficient and you would continue with diet A. Yeah, so because you told me there's no amount of evidence that would ever convince you that the vegan diet with proper supplementation would be superior in any health metric than your current diet. Is that correct? You would pick your current diet.
The clones, if I have a million clones of me, assuming that clones, are going to be stacked and there's nothing that's going to, no variables, whatnot, then the obvious answer is going to be that I'm going to go with a diet that's healthier. And
Well, wait. Didn't you? So do you appreciate how there's a derivable contradiction with that?
So in this scenario, it's going to be the diet that requires supplements. In the scenario that
Do you appreciate how you've contradicted yourself? And they compare the vegan diet with supplementing to your diet. And all the clones of you on the vegan diet do great, and all the clones on your diet end up going down the line dying of heart disease. You would look at that data and you would say, nope, I'm going to stick to my current diet.
Okay, yes, I'll stay with my current diet.
Okay, sure. So just to be clear, so your only metric to gauge something is a symptom. Since your only metric of ascertaining a health outcome is your own symptomatology, it's your own symptoms, then if there is a disease by which it takes longer than you've experienced to manifest those symptoms, there would be no way to ascertain which lifestyle would lead to that disease or not, on your view. Is that correct?
I would be dead. I would not know. I would have, let's say if it's a heart attack, if I smoke and I go, wow, this is improving my blood levels, this is making me feel better, this is wonderful, then I would have to go, hey, look, smoking is healthy, right?
Yes, that's what you would say. Wouldn't that be if you felt good? Not even blood levels. If you felt good, yeah.
I think,
okay.
that would.
And if you were taught that things about the vegan, so you're saying like, well, if I was only taught things about the vegan diet that were more positive than when properly supplemented, then that would change your view?
Unless I tried it and I didn't get the outcome that I was looking for.
Okay. So it's not all. It's all about what you were taught. It's what you were taught in addition to what your experience is. Is that? Yeah. Would you then be agnostic about smoking since you have no experience on it?
No. So if I smoke, if in that scenario,
look,
I would believe that smoking was healthy for me if that was the case.
Okay. You're saying if that was the evidence, you would agree that your standard of evaluating evidence would lead to concluding that smoking is healthy.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So in that example, I would be convinced that smoking.
What about consumption of your own fecal material? If you had a good experience with that, and there was a large amount of prospective cohort data to conclude that led to unhealthy health outcomes, but you had a good experience, your blood levels, you checked your blood levels and everything, and they optimized. In fact, your B12 may even have gone up a little bit. It's just your experience that's in favor of it. The studies are against it in the long-term prospective cohort studies.
So I'm kind of stuck in a position where either I have to say, hey, look, and these are all things that are really not good things, right? Okay. Yes, in that case, I would eat my own fecal matter.
Okay, cool. All right. Could I ask a few other things?
Yeah, go ahead.
What about a fecal matter urine stew? Would you conclude that the fecal matter urine stew is healthy?
Yeah, I can't do this. Okay, you're winning. I can't. I with the way that you're doing this, I can't, because I have to contradict myself on all of those. It's like in real life, I wouldn't be able to eat my own fecal matter. I wouldn't be able to smoke cigarettes. I can eat meat, but I can't do any of those things.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so I went under the fire pit. So I have to either give you a better goalpost, because the one that I'm using right now doesn't make any sense for the scenario, because either I have to accept eating fecal matter and like there has to be a line where I'm like, okay, this is just absurd, right? So it's just hard for me to continue down the path of my own experience in this scenario, because then I would just eat anything or drink fecal matter too, and so I have to huh? It's not good enough for me to say my own experience.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed getting a laugh out of that and laugh at me or whatever. So last thing I'd say is that really science isn't even an author of truth. I know that it's touted to be something like that, like it's some sort of a god, but science is not an author of truth that determines any type of an outcome, nor is it even a method that can answer a should question, an ought question, or dictate personal preferences. Science is merely just an observation and a recreation of the natural world. Although personal experiences can't necessarily, with certainty, make a conclusion, they are hypothesis generating. Likewise, to many of the studies that vegans use, they are hypothesis generating. Anyways, thanks for watching.
I was, again, pleased to be on the prevention trial writing group for ACC-AHA. And I'm going all gung-ho, giving them all this data, and they have the correct amount of skepticism, very frustrating, but the amount of skepticism saying that is not a randomized trial. Adventist Health, 5 different groups of people. The vegans are different. They behave differently. You can't necessarily attribute their 9.5 years longer that they live, which sounds pretty good. You can't attribute it to the diet necessarily. There's a lot of things. Well, I know what they're saying. I understand that criticism. I don't go to bars on a Saturday night and do knife and bottle fights, and I wear my seatbelt. I mean, are vegans more risk averse? Probably true. How do you get around that? Well, prospective randomized trials. And so that's what I'm imploring everyone who's in our area is not just be an evangelist, be a scientist, and let's get the research done. Prospective, randomized, large, long outcome studies, not just lipids and blood pressure and all the like, but with outcomes. And then we'll show them. We do have an opportunity before us that the time is right to take all of the hypothesis generating, which is it's a kind of an insulting term. This is a huge trial. It's not just hypothesis generating. It's not just descriptive. It is prescriptive. We should be doing this. It's really hard to be in that room.